Hi, welcome to Open Hand Farm and welcome to week 7 of the Three Rivers Homestead Pantry Challenge. I cannot believe that I'm still doing this. I never dreamed I would make it through the month of February, and I think I'm going to. If you are new here or visiting because of the Pantry Challenge, I am so happy to have you. I hope that you enjoy the meals that I have prepared and maybe find something new that you could use items out of your pantry to make. I have to tell you that today is probably the weirdest thing you're gonna see me do. Today is Sunday and we are having a soup potluck at church. So my plan is to take soup and sourdough bread. The sourdough bread I always make the night before, put it in the oven because we keep our house chilly. We like it that way. And it just does better if it's in an enclosed area so that the heat can make it rise very nicely. So when I made my bread last night, I realized that my son had some smoked pork butts in the oven that I use, and he still had to do some baking on them. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I knew I couldn't put it in right after he took his pork butts out because it would be too hot. And it was getting late at night and I needed to go to bed. So I got to thinking, what else do I have that is an enclosed area that I could keep warm? So I used my washing machine. It's clean. I had recently just cleaned it all out really well, so I didn't worry about that. So what I did is I took a bean bag that I have that you can heat up in the microwave to use for sore muscles or whatever. I heated it up and laid it in the bottom of the washing machine, and then I put a pan upside down on it. Some of that was because the middle of the bottom of my machine comes up like this, so I couldn't just set my bowl there, so that helped to make a base to set my bowl on as well. So I heated the beanbag, put it on, put the casserole pan upside down so I had a flat base, and I set the bowl on top of that. And then I closed the door and it had a nice warm spot for the night. I was afraid that there might be an accident in the night with the little kids, so I put a sign over the door and basically taped it shut. And then I thought, well, what if they don't even look at that and they just start turning on the washing machine and they water my dough? So I unplugged it as well. You guys, it's terrible to have a brain that thinks like this. It's a blessing and a curse, as Monk would say, if you know who I'm talking about. So anyway, I raised my bread overnight in the washing machine and it turned out great. The next thing I needed to do was get my soup started in the crock pot. So I used 2 bags of the Southern style hash browns and 2 cans of cream of chicken soup. I put them in the crock pot on low and kept a good eye on it. And while it was cooking, I started preparing my bread to go in the oven. So I rolled it into balls and I wanted to have bacon to put in the soup. So I started that as well. After it got done cooking, it was time to score the bread and get it going. For breakfast, I had one of my favorite sprouted everything bagels that I buy from Azure Standard. And I added a couple of slices of cheese, and of course, I had coffee. The bread came out of the oven and it looked beautiful. I just had to let it cool before we sliced it. Here's the soup. It's doing very well. The potatoes are getting soft. Now, about 30 minutes before this is done, you're supposed to add a block of cream cheese. So I have left this sitting out all morning so it'll be soft. And so that's one of the things I'm taking. Then you can top this soup with bacon bits and cheese, but instead of having something sitting extra on the table, I'm just taking these in Ziploc bags and I'm going to pour them into the soup. If somebody doesn't like cheese and bacon, they don't need to be eating my potato soup. I'm also taking some softened butter for the bread, and I'm throwing in an extension cord because if I get there and they don't have a spot that my cord will reach, I can still plug in my soup while we have church. But I wanted to tell you about something else I used out of my pantry last week and how well it worked. In my 5th day, I believe it is, I had to trim back my rosemary bush, and it wasn't just like little bitty sprigs of rosemary. This is a huge thing, and it had probably 1.5 inch stems coming out of it. So I had to use my little 4-inch battery operated chainsaw. I'll leave a video to that here. That is a handy thing to have. I was cutting it and some of the little branches got stuck in the chainsaw and kind of kicked it, and it hit my thumb. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm bruised all the way up my thumb. And this little spot right here, that little bitty spot, it bled like crazy. It bled through my glove. I put a tissue on it, it bled through that. I came upstairs and went in my creamery, and I have a little area there that I keep some homemade remedies on hand in case we need them. So I grabbed my yarrow powder. And this is just yarrow plant that I dehydrated and powdered. And I took a spoonful of it and I put it in a little dish and added a little bit of water and made a paste. And I just like packed it on there, and then I put a Band-Aid over it. I went about my day, and in a couple hours, I thought, I'm just gonna see what that's doing. I took it off, there was no blood on the Band-Aid, and it had stopped bleeding, and it even had started scabbing over. So it's got a little scab on it, but I feel nothing there. Like there's no pain whatsoever. And normally when I really poke myself and get a scratch, it hurts bad. Every time I do something, I kind of accidentally rub it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, that hurts. No pain. It did an amazing job. So if you have yarrow in your yard, make some powder to have on hand. It did a great job. So my middle daughter, who lives behind us in her tiny abode, is providing dinner for us tonight. We have a Chiefs game to watch, and when I say we, that means she and Mark are going to be watching it. So she's putting together some nachos for us. Brought some chips. These are my favorite kind of chips. We hardly ever get these. Some white queso cheese and refried beans, and of course the meat. Hi, welcome to Monday morning. I've been up and changing bed sheets, got some laundry going, and now I'm just going to have a bagel for breakfast like I did yesterday, but I have some new recipes I want to try later. So let me eat my breakfast and we'll come back and try something new and different. Okay, I'm back to try this new recipe. So last week I made pizza and I wanted to put Italian sausage on it. So I made 2 pounds of Italian sausage. I used 1 pound on the pizza, and the other one I immediately put in a bag and put in the fridge. So that pound needs to be used. I'm gonna make meatballs with this, and then I can use it sometime this week in a meal. I have never been a big meatball eater or maker, So I did have to look for a recipe. Most recipes called for a pound of Italian sausage as well as a pound of ground beef. I didn't want to use the ground beef, so I found one that only uses the Italian sausage. So let's put these together and get them in the oven. So the first thing I was supposed to do is line a baking sheet with parchment paper and turn the oven on to 400 degrees. So I've got that done. I'm just going to kind of break it up a little bit because it is very cold, kind of stuck together. So the first thing I'm going to add is an egg, and I've already beat that up a little bit. Then I'm going to add some breadcrumbs. I did wash my hands. I have this jar of sourdough breadcrumbs that I made out of some sourdough bread. So I am using 3/4 of a cup of those. Now, the recipe I'm using calls for double all of this, but I only have 1 pound of sausage, so I am only making half a recipe. I will link the recipe in the description box if you're interested in it. Now we need a 1/2 cup of shredded Parmesan cheese and a minced garlic. I am just going to use my garlic press and do it this way. And then it calls for water. You're supposed to add the water just a little bit at a time, and it says not to overwork the meat. So I'm going to kind of just mix this all up a little bit. And then I'm going to start putting the water in. Now I'm going to start adding the water a little at a time, just until it comes together and makes meatballs. Oh, I think that's going to be plenty. So I only used about 1/4 of a cup of water. I didn't need the whole 1/2 cup. So remember that. Hey, this recipe made 28 balls for me. And I think they're about a tablespoon, which is what they tell you to use. Now I'm going to stick them in the oven for 15 to 18 minutes. And we'll see how they look after that. Okay, while I'm in the kitchen and waiting for those to bake, I'm going to try to throw together something else. I have a recipe here for chocolate sourdough muffins, and they have chocolate chips in them. The recipe calls for granulated sugar, but I'm going to try using honey instead. And the chocolate chips I'm going to use are from Azure Standard, and they are made with coconut sugar instead of white processed sugar. I've never made a sourdough muffin before, so we'll see how it turns out. Okay, I got a little sidetracked. So before I even started the muffins, it was time for the meatballs to come out of the oven. I did give them about 3 or 4 extra minutes. They look delicious. When they cool down a little bit, I'm going to taste one and see what I think. Now I got to take a load of laundry out of the dryer, and then I'm going to mix up some muffins. Back to the meatballs. I tasted one. You can see that they are holding together very nicely, and they're soft. They're not tough. They taste really good. Now we're going to do the muffins. The first thing I did is oil the bottom of these pans. These are actually square muffins, and I feel like they hold a little bit more. The recipe says it makes 15 muffins. I didn't want to oil 2 muffin pans so that I could put 3 in one of them. So I'm going to try to make this work. Okay, I have all of my ingredients laid out here. I said I was going to use honey, but instead I'm using coconut sugar. I was afraid the honey would be too wet since this already has some milk and sour cream in it. I didn't want them to not cook because they were too wet. My oil, which is 1/2 cup of vegetable oil, but I don't use vegetable oil, so I'm using an avocado oil. I need to add the eggs. I need to add the sour cream. I will put a link to this recipe in the description box, so don't worry about that. I'm also going to add my milk. So I'm going to add my sourdough discard. This has not been fed for a couple of days, so it's not light and fluffy like it would be if I were making bread with it. It says I should measure it by weight. Now I'm going to set this bowl aside and add the dry ingredients in another bowl. So I was just reading and I'm looking at all my ingredients out here, and they did not tell me to put my vanilla in with the wet ingredients. So I'm going to add it here. So if you look at this recipe when I put it in the description box, remember to add your vanilla to your wet items. Now we're going to mix our dry ingredients. So we have 2 cups of flour, 1/2 cup of cocoa, baking soda, a baking powder. I need to add my salt. I'm going to mix those up before I put the wet ingredients in. And it says not to over mix the batter. It is very thick like a brownie mix. I'm only using 3/4 of a cup of chocolate chips instead of 1.5 cups. And what I did is I saved about 1/3 of a cup out to sprinkle on top, since it suggests you can do that as well. I'm going to use a big scoop to fill these with. I'm going to put 1 scoop in each cup. Now we'll sprinkle the extra chips on top. I am not even really a chocolate eater, you guys. But for those of you who have not been here before, my son and his wife and their 3 children, who are 7 months, 2, and 4, live with us. And we do 2 nights a week where we all eat together. One night I do the cooking, and the other night Kaylee does the cooking. So Monday night is my night to cook. So I'm making chocolate muffins for dessert. I'm going to put these in the oven and show you what they look like when they come out. I'm going to take the potato soup left over from yesterday and go have some lunch and relax for a few minutes. Here they are out of the muffin tins, and I will say I probably should have cooked them a little less time. Mark and I tried one and it was a little dry, but I picked the smallest one because I wanted to know if it would be dry. Okay, it's time for dinner. So I'm trying a new recipe because I had some items that I needed to use and I didn't want to have to go buy anything. So some of the things I have are some chicken thighs in the freezer, some fire roasted poblano peppers from my garden this summer, onions, cilantro, cheese, garlic, stuff like that. So I found a recipe that's called crispy poblano chicken tacos. So we have our chicken thighs, and now we're going to add all of these ingredients. Now I am doing a double batch for our family. So I need 4 tablespoons of olive oil and 3 teaspoons of chili powder, 2 teaspoons of cumin, that's my stove, 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, one of my favorite things, black pepper, 4 garlic cloves minced, cilantro, and 4 poblano peppers that are diced. Now these were actually fire roasted and frozen, and I have thawed them out. A large onion, it calls for a small onion, so I used a large since I'm doing a double batch. Now we're gonna mix all of this together with the chicken. Oh, this smells so good. Now, we're going to put this in this pan and we're gonna make sure everything is spread out. Okay, I'm gonna use my hands because I want to know that the chicken thighs are definitely not stuck together. Oh, you guys, this looks delicious. I hope these turn out as well as the picture I saw on Instagram. All right, so there's my thighs and all my veggies and spices. We're gonna put this in the oven at 400 degrees for 20 to 22 minutes. Now, while that is cooking, we're gonna put together a dip to dip the tacos in. And I need 1 large avocado. I don't have an avocado, but I have avocado mash. So I am going to put 3 of these in. This was a great way to use these also because they were going to expire soon. I have these gloves on, not because I'm afraid of the avocado. I need to use a medium jalapeno pepper. These are out of my freezer, and I do not have a medium jalapeno pepper. My jalapeno peppers have never done very well at all. So this is the size of jalapeno pepper I have grown. These are called pumpkin spice jalapenos, only because of the color. They don't taste like pumpkin, but that's what I have. And these were actually fire roasted. I just thawed them out, and now I'm gonna chop them up and use them for this recipe. I'm only gonna add part of this because I'm not sure if we're gonna need it all. Since I used an avocado mash, I don't know if it will not need as much moisture. Okay, we're gonna add cilantro, salt. Now this is supposed to be a little wet, like a wet salsa kind of thing, so you would dip your taco in it. I think I'll add a little bit more water. I just had a last minute thought. As a side dish, I'm just gonna cook some fire roasted corn that we cut off the cob. I think if I just put it in the microwave, it'll cook and it won't be a problem. Guys, look at this chicken. You want your chicken to be about 165, and this is actually about 174. So it's all good. So at this point, I just need to shred the chicken into the juices and the veggies. Okay, the meat is shredded. Now we're going to put the tacos together. The recipe calls for corn tortillas, but this is what I have. You're supposed to use a spray oil on them, but again, I'm using what I've got. So I'm just using an avocado oil and kind of spreading it around thinly with the brush. I set my oven to 425 degrees. Okay, these are all oiled, so now I'm gonna flip them over. Then I'm gonna put them in for 2 to 3 minutes, just so that they're soft and pliable enough to fold over well. See how this corn is doing. Oh good, it's thawing very nicely. I'm just gonna leave it like this for right now until I get the tacos in the oven, and then I'll finish heating this. This recipe calls for Monterey Jack cheese. Well, guess what? I don't have that. So I have shredded mild Tillamook from Costco and shredded white cheddar from Azure Standard. So at this point, we're going to fill our tacos. We're gonna put some meat mixture and some cheese and fold it over and push it until it sticks, is what it says. So we want the sticking factor, and you see that the oily sides of the shell is up, so that's why we had to flip the shell over after we oiled them. I'm not sure how many of these I'm gonna need for dinner. I'm just doing a bunch. Okay, I'm gonna put these in a 425 degree oven for 15 minutes. So this is what they look like when they come out. And then you can dip it in the avocado sauce. And corn on the side. So that's what's for dinner. Hello, welcome to Tuesday. For breakfast, I had a chocolate chip muffin, but I ate some nuts with it to give it a little bit more nutrition. So that was breakfast. For lunch, I'm going to make Mark and I some split pea soup. I canned this in August during the Every Bit Counts challenge. And I also canned some ham chunks that I'm going to add to it. Now, I will tell you that there's a lot of comments about you should never can ham. I did, because I know that my ham does not contain the water that a store-bought ham does. This was a pure, heavy ham, not full of water. And I believe that they say not to can it because the water content can be so different in the different hams or roast or whatever it is that you might can. I have had no problem with this. I have seen other people on YouTube who have canned it and not had any problems, so I did. So before you can ham, I wanted to tell you that, and I want you to do your own research before doing it. So I'm gonna put these two together in a pot and warm them up for lunch. I have this bread left from our lunch on Sunday for our soup lunch, and I am going to put it under the broiler, put some butter on it, and we'll have it with our soup. Okay, the soup is done, the bread is done, and we're just gonna dip some of this up. The ham kind of fell apart in there. I told you it was really, really soft. And so I've got that, and then I'll just grab some bread, and there's lunch. Okay, it's time to start dinner. And this is Tuesday, and that means we have our Bible study. So tonight's theme is tacos. So after looking in my pantry to see what I had that I could bring, I have onions, I have some peppers from the freezer that have been grilled, so they're fire roasted, and I had a little bit of chicken breast. So I'm going to make some fajita mix to go on the nachos. So let's get this put together. My favorite fajita seasoning is this Grill Mates by McCormick. So for each packet, you do 1/4 of a cup of olive oil and 1/4 of a cup of water. And then I just mix it up in a Ziploc bag. I've decided to give the onions a little more smoky flavor. I'm going to put them in there before I cook them. And then I'll take them out and add the chicken. And we're gonna let this sit for about 15 minutes. So while it is sitting, we can cut up our fire roasted peppers. Okay, since these are for nachos, I don't want the big long strips, so I'm gonna cut them up a little bit more. All right, so the chicken and the onions are on the grill. We'll let them cook a little bit. Then when the onions are done, we'll take those off and put the peppers in the basket. When you're cooking chicken, you want the thickest part of the breast to register about 165. Hi, happy Valentine's Day. Today I had another bagel for breakfast, and for lunch I am heating up in the air fryer some jalapeno poppers that I had made for the game on Sunday. And then we have one of the tacos I made for our family dinner left over, so I'm popping that in there as well. Last night I didn't get a chance to take a picture of the whole pan of the chicken, peppers, and onions all placed together, but it got eaten and everybody loved it, so that was a win. I did spend some money yesterday though. Because of Valentine's Day, I don't always do something for my kids, but I have a friend that is trying to increase her cookie baking business. So I decided to help her out by buying some gift baskets for my kids for Valentine's Day. This is what it looked like. Some of them had monster cookies. Some had a white chocolate cranberry cookie, and one of them had a peanut butter chip cookie in it. They all had the white chocolate pretzels and chocolate covered strawberries. They thought they were great, and she does a great job baking. So if you're in the area and want to know somewhere to order some really good cookies, just let me know. I'm gonna get this food cooked so Mark can have his lunch, and then we're gonna try to go prune some peach trees since the weather is nice today.
I'm upstairs preparing a table to serve Mark dinner in the attic tonight, and then maybe we'll listen to some music or watch a movie or play a game. Not sure, but we'll do something.
For dinner, I decided to use some of those meatballs I had made earlier in the week. We had some leftover pasta sauce in the fridge, and so I just went ahead and used that on those. I didn't need a lot of sauce. I found some pasta noodles in the pantry. I was going to make a creamy Alfredo sauce to go on the pasta, and then I would just top them with the marinara and meatballs, so it would be a mixture of Alfredo and marinara. I got the meatball sauce started first, then the noodles, then it was time for the Alfredo. I also steamed some broccoli and added some garlic, butter, and salt to that to go along with the pasta. Well, dinner was good, and we listened to some music, and we played Rumacube, and now Mark is off to church to lead our children's group. I had some leftover food, so I put it in little tubs to have for lunches. This one is the broccoli with some Alfredo on it that I thought would be good to warm up and put over a baked sweet potato. I'm gonna sit down and enjoy my quiet house. I'm the only one home. You know how often that happens? Never. I'm pretty excited. I'll see you guys in the morning. Hi, welcome to Thursday. Last night, Mark and I had a great dinner, and the kids gave us each a little gift, and you can see my Valentine that Genesee and Tevia made me hanging on the cabinet. It was so cute. Today is gonna be kind of a day of leftovers as far as breakfast and lunch go. For breakfast, I'm having a bagel, just like I have the last 2 mornings. I've got some seed planting I need to do, and so I'm gonna go down and get some of that done, and then I'll show you what I'm gonna have for lunch. Okay, the seeds are planted, and I am going to have some leftovers from dinner last night, and I don't have to worry about dinner because this is our family dinner night, which means Kaylee is cooking, and I don't have to. So I'm gonna go out and help Mark do some things in the yard, and we'll come in and dinner will be ready. It's always such a blessing when it's her day to do dinner. She made, let's see if I can say it right, arroz con pollo. And basically it's chicken and rice with some different seasonings, and it had like peppers and onions and peas in it. It was so good. It's always good. Kaylee is the best cook. That's my daughter-in-law, for those who don't know our family very well. My son and his wife and kids live with us. So the last thing I need to do before I go to bed is I need to feed my sourdough starter, and I needed to lay out some sausage and bacon. I'm gonna get that sourdough fed, and I'll see you in the morning. Welcome to Friday. This is a weird day. We woke up to snow, and it has already snowed about 2 inches. I figured the ground would be so warm that it wouldn't stick, but it is. It's crazy. I had to put a fire in the fireplace. It was so cold in here. Today for breakfast, I had oats, Nothing exciting. I did put a little granola in it, just along with the honey to kind of give it some extra crunch. Now I have some work to do. I have another special event that I'm cooking for this week. I had the youth director call me from church and ask me if I could prepare a meal for their weekend that's coming up, where they get all the kids together and spend the weekend together. So after thinking about what I have in my pantry, about the only thing I could come up with was to provide breakfast sandwiches. I can make biscuits, that's not a problem. I have bacon and sausage from the hog in our freezer. So now I just need to hope that our chickens have laid enough eggs this week that I can put eggs on some of those biscuits. So today I need to make biscuits. I need to cook sausage patties. I need to cook bacon. And I will put those together so that they are ready to be heated up tomorrow morning. Now, the first day of next week is Sunday. It is our family dinner night. So after thinking about what I have that I think they would enjoy, I'm gonna lay out a pork roast or two to put in the crock pot on Sunday with some poblano peppers and some seasoning to make some pork tacos. I don't have store-bought tortillas. I'm gonna have to make some, and that's gonna be a lot because there's 14 of us. So this morning I put together tortilla dough. I made a triple batch in the mixer, and then I divided the dough into 3 sections, and each of those sections I divided into 16 pieces. So I rolled up all the little pieces. I put them on a parchment-lined cookie sheet, and I covered them with plastic wrap, and they are sitting in the oven where it was warmer than this room at the time. And I am letting them sit for about 3 hours so that the sourdough can ferment the flour a little bit more than what it would if I just mixed them and baked them. So after I do all of my biscuit baking and sausage and bacon and all that stuff, then I will start making tortillas. So I got a lot of work to do, but it's already lunchtime. I was waiting for Kaylee and the kids to leave because they were in the kitchen having breakfast and they went to a friend's house. So now I can do everything that needs to be done. But first, I'm gonna have some lunch, and that way, that's done, and I can just go about my business. For lunch, I'm gonna open a small jar of tomato soup that I canned in August, and I found this loaf of bread in the freezer, and I love this sprouted bread, so I'm gonna use it to have a grilled cheese sandwich to go along with my tomato soup. So there's lunch. Okay, I got all of my sausage cooked. There's 4 layers here and 3 layers of bacon. I think I decided that since I don't have to have the sandwiches at church until 8 in the morning, I'm going to go ahead and make my biscuits in the morning. That way they'll be nice and fresh, and I can heat these up in the oven while I bake the biscuits and then put them together, and they'll be nice and fresh. We did have to go to the store and get some milk and orange juice and a dozen eggs to use for these biscuits tomorrow morning. Now I'm going to roll out my tortillas and cook those. Then I think I'll be done with all of this extra stuff for today. Now, these did sit longer than I was told to let them sit. So I'm just gonna roll them out. The recipe says roll them out as thin as you can without tearing them. I'm terrible at rolling circles, let you know that right now. I have an electric griddle that I put these on, and it's set on about $2.75. So we'll see how they do. They smell good. And then over here, I have 2 cast iron skillets. I got this rolling pin for Christmas, and I love it. Isn't that beautiful? This one kind of puffed up a little bit. It's out of one of the skillets. This side is just, my family doesn't like things too dark, so this is the color I'm looking for. Okay, I'm gonna keep rolling and cooking, and I'll let you know when I'm done. Mission accomplished. They're soft and pliable, yet a little crunchy. They're so good. I'm really happy with the way they turned out. Now, after they cool, I will store them in a Ziploc bag until Sunday. Okay, it's Saturday morning. It's time to make biscuits and put together some sausage, egg, and cheese biscuits, some bacon, egg, and cheese biscuits, some bacon and cheese biscuits, and some sausage and cheese biscuits, and then just some plain old biscuits. So let's get this job done. The first matter at hand was mixing together and cutting out biscuits. I did 2 double batches. I didn't think I could work with 4 batches at a time, so I've got those all cut out and baked. Then it was time to start assembling the sandwiches. So Mark helped me. I cut the biscuits open, he laid the cheese on, and I just scrambled the eggs softly and used a scoop to put a pile of eggs on each sandwich. And then he would top them with meat and kind of press it down, and it melted the cheese to hold it together. It turned out great. I was a little concerned, but it worked. The bacon was a little trickier than just a piece of sausage, but it worked out, and everybody loved them. I think we ended up making 16 that were meat and cheese only, and then 24 that had egg on them as well. And then just about a dozen of plain biscuits to go in case somebody didn't like the other ones. In previous videos, I've talked about how I like to clean up after myself as I make messes so that by the time I get everything done, the mess is pretty much under control and I don't have to spend a lot of time cleaning. I gotta tell you, that did not work this morning. Let me show you what my kitchen looked like when the biscuits were done and we took them to the church. Tonight, we're having leftovers. I'm not even going to video it for you. Just know we had leftovers. Thanks so much for coming along this week. It has been a crazy one, as usual. Every week, I think, how am I feeding this many people out of my pantry? I think it's amazing how God can just provide. I know that God has blessed me through this and challenged me through this so that I could say, yes, I will cook for more people than just my family. And it has been amazing. So thanks so much again for coming along. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing. We would love to have you here as part of our Open Hand family. And until next week, blessings on you and yours.